Let's be honest, this is a really strange time for Palm Sunday and Holy Week. I mean, who wants to hear about betrayal, torture, and a gruesome execution after a year of being huddled up at home? Honestly, I'm not sure I know how to preach Palm Sunday in the midst of a pandemic. Preaching it in the context of war makes more sense, doesn't it? There's a natural affinity between this story and our wars of colonialism and economic imperialism. Indeed, there's more in common here with economic crisis, isn't there? As this story reminds us of more essential truths, issues of justice and class, which remain so deeply embedded in human history. But a pandemic? A virus without allegiance to any nation, class, or ethnicity? A virus that has killed over 500,000 of us and counting? How does one preach Palm Sunday in that kind of story? Add to that the ongoing violence in a society intent on worshiping weapons and ignoring that our institutions are built on supremacy of a lesser melanin, a society that whitewashes its history and intentionally misinterprets its founding documents to support an industry of manufacturing death. Because we arm ourselves against all we misunderstand and all that we fear. We stock up on misinformation and incrimination. We stock up on separation and division. And when buying groceries is no longer safe, when voting is no longer safe, when wearing a hoodie while black is no longer safe, we are like the bystanders who watched the disciples take the animal, asking, "What are you doing?" Only our query is directed above. No palm branch waving will happen this year as we worship from home. No hosannas from the children who have learned to cover their mouths with fabric and had to translate their education from a screen. No, this year we trade in our hosannas for the question that has lingered in our throats throughout this long year. What are you doing, God? Where have you been? And perhaps that is our line in to this timeless but not triumphant entry into the holy city. They too had questions lodged in their throats after centuries of oppression and occupation. Where are you, God? Where have you been? And so as a potential Messiah rides into town, hope swells like a vaccine shot into the veins. Hope that now at last change is afoot. We need not be huddled in our homes in fear. We can go about freely without worry of Roman violence or the virus of empire that lingers still. You see, they had hopes for a defeat of their enemy, a violent overthrow of all that oppressed. But that support quickly turned to anger as sword was traded for servanthood and suffering. As this would-be Messiah rode into town, his heart was not on payback or vengeance. He rode into the heart of it all. And after the applause and cheers, driven by desperate hopes, he looked around at everything. And the question we have asked must have arisen in his heart: what are you doing? Where have you been? And he saw no silver bullet, no controlled trials with 95% efficacy against the virus of human hatred. He knew the only way to overcome our hostility was to show another way. And the triumphal entry became prologue for a path of nonviolent resistance. Nonviolent resistance that surrendered to the worst of humanity without surrendering an inch of his heart. The path, now strewn with leaves and robes and cheers, will soon become rocks and dirt and blood. As he bears a cross devised to warn all who would disrupt the status quo. This Holy Week is sacred because humanity was given a glimpse into love, A love that could bear our worst and still forgive. A love that could look into the vacant eyes of hardened souls and offer healing, grace, and peace. But that lesson has not been easily learned. That wisdom remains as elusive as ever, because centuries later he looks around still, asking of you and of me, what are you doing? Where have you been? The invitation, you see, on this pandemic Palm Sunday is still. Will we trade our hostilities and divisions? Will we trade our longing to be right and our desire for vengeance for peace and goodwill? Amen. And namaste. Just want to give a shout out to Cam Miller for his inspiration for this piece. He wrote something that gave me this idea and helped with the opening. So shout out to Cam Miller. And maybe let's go back inside. It's good to be outside, back in the treehouse. Hopefully we'll do the whole service out there soon.